then we can just get going. So let's do a little bit of a slow start because we're gonna wait for everybody to join. So welcome to First Steps in Weavy. This is a session where we do pretty much a one-on-one onboarding where I will show you our tool. I will go into depth of all the menus, of how to share different works with other users. I will also show you how to set up your first nodes in Weavy, things like your first video node and your first image node. We're going to take a look at some of the editing tools as well. So we always do this session on Mondays at 4 p.m. Central European time here on Discord. We also do a session on Thursdays called Office Hours. Office Hours is also at 4 p.m. Central European time, but on Thursdays. That session, what I'll usually do is that I'll show you a workflow that I built in the last week. And then everybody is welcome up on stage, or in the chat, they can also ask questions about certain workflows, about problems. What is really fun is that a lot of the users usually share their screen, and then we troubleshoot their workflow live together so that we can all learn as a group and try to push the platform and see how far we can get. So highly recommend joining Office Hours on Thursdays as well. But for this session, we're gonna keep it more simple. I'm gonna show you the tool, and I try to leave around 5 to 10 minutes for questions at the end. What is also good to keep in mind is that we are recording this session. We do this so that we can repost it in the channels, even though we've been pretty bad at it the last couple of weeks. We're gonna get better. So we are planning to share the recordings in the sub-channel in Weavy called Weavy Live. So dear people can watch the recordings if they're not able to join in live time. However, it is good to keep in mind, if you're not comfortable with being recorded, please don't come up on stage because this is gonna be reposted. So if you're not comfortable with that, just ask questions in the chat and you won't be on video. But personally, I think it's more fun if you come up on stage for questions. It's a better interaction where we can talk and you can show your screen and things like that. So that is pretty much all the housekeeping. We also have a huge statement today. Today we have a new team member joining the Discord for the first time. His name is Ron Baranov. So please give him a welcome in the chat. He's an awesome dude and he's gonna help you guys with a bunch of workflows and live sessions in the future, sorry. All right. So without further ado, I'm gonna go ahead and share my screen with you. Okay, now you should be able to see yourselves. If you are totally new to Discord, you can see that a little window popped up next to me. If you double click it or just click it, that will open up so it will become a little bit larger so it's easier to see. But I'm gonna take that to my other window. There we go. So this is what the Weavy platform look like. What I usually do is that I go to app.weavy.ai and then you don't have to do the extra step of signing in. This is what our dashboard look like. And you can see on the top, we have something I call our workflow library. This is great for, taking inspiration, but also for learning. So, click around and see how we work with different models. We try to work on updating this, and we're gonna get better at that as well in the coming weeks. So you're gonna see a bunch of new workflow shows up here so that you can see how we work with certain models and things like that. It's really good for learning, but also for you to, copy and paste part of our workflow and then just command V it into your workflow. So it has multiple purposes. There's of course the tutorial tab that starts from very easy and go to more advanced topics. You're gonna start seeing more and more tutorials showing up here soon as well. And then on the bottom, there's of course the link to the Discord channel. And here in the Discord channel, it's a great place to ask questions that the community can help answer, and also sharing your workflows and things like that. It is good to keep in mind that the Discord is community supported, so we don't stay we don't take a look at it every hour as we that are on the Weavy team as much as we do as on the regular support channel, which I'll show you how to access as well. But we try to answer questions there as well. But it's not, if there's something that is very urgent, please use the regular support channel because we're going to prioritize those questions. However, there might be a community member that might do an excellent job of answering your question. Okay, what else do we have here? On the top, you can see your name. This is where you can see settings, sign out. If you're part of multiple workspaces, which might be the case if you work in an organization or with a client, this is where you can switch between the different workspaces. You can press My Files. Everything that is saved in My Files is private. So if I start a workflow here, I will be the only one that can access it until I choose to specifically share it with somebody. When I choose to share it with somebody, that workflow will show up here under Share with Me. So these are the 3 workflows that other users have shared with me that is not part of my organization. Then in Workspace Files, this is all the combined workflows that everybody in your workspace or your organization can access. So if I create a new workflow here, anybody that is in my organization will be able to access my workflow. They will not be able to mess it up, and I'll show you why in a second. However, they will be able to access it. And then in apps, this is where apps will show up. If you're totally new to Weavy, that might sound confusing, and I will go into that a little bit later in the session about what an app is. So the apps that have been shared with you will show up here, not the ones that you own yourself, because they're considered a workflow technically. You can create a file up on the left side, and what you also can do is that you can press the one up on the right side, or you can right click in the canvas. Then you can create a new file or a new folder. Maybe we'll do a test folder. And in my test folder, I can drag in any workflow I want, and they will then show up inside my little folder. That's pretty much it, what you can do here in the dashboard. You can, of course, choose between lists, and you can search different kind of workflows. So maybe I'll search for LAMP, and this workflow shows up. The way that you share files and collaborate within a file is, for example, if you're part of an organization, and in the organization, everybody can access your workflow. So what you can do is that if I go to my colleague's Itai's folder, you can see that he has a bunch of workflows that he owns. If I press it, you can see that I open up his workflow and I can access it. I can play the videos. I can do copy and paste part of the workflow. However, I cannot delete or make any edits. Like I cannot delete his workflow. This is because I don't own this file, and we don't want other team members to be able to mess up their team members' files. So the way that you collaborate is by pressing duplicate to my files, and this will create an exact copy of that version that I can then go ahead and start editing and removing different kind of notes. So that is one way of sharing. The way I can share this with somebody is up on the right side. We have this share button that works very much like Google Workspaces. So you can send a specific invite to somebody, or you can choose to do anyone with a link, for example, copy that link, and then that person will have access to that workflow. What you also can do, which is kind of neat, is that if I go back to the dashboard, and I'm going to update it, and I'll go to my files instead. So I go to Kim's folder. Here's a bunch of files that I own. If I right click one, you can see that you can do a couple of things. So you can duplicate it, you can move it, you can rename it, and you can change the owner. Change owner is a powerful technique. So if you do change owner, you can change the owner to anybody that is in your team. So maybe I want to change it to Gal, and then I press change owner, and it's kind of like throwing a ball. So you throw the ownership as a ball over to the other user so that they don't have to duplicate their files if you want to collaborate. So that's pretty much all the options for collaborating within the Weavy platform. So let's create our first workflow. You can do that up on the left side, up on the right side, or what I usually do is that I right click and I do new file. That is going to open up a new file for us. And when you open a new file, you're going to be met by this tutorial, which is great to do if you haven't done it. However, today I am the tutorial, so I'm going to do skip. And then we have an empty canvas. Up on the left side, you can change the name. So maybe I call it First Steps in Weavy with a backslash. We don't want the backslash. Let's take that out. What else do we have here? So on the left side, we have a menu. If you press the little W, you can go back, duplicate, and you also have some preferences. If you press one of these symbols, a little menu is going to pop out. This is our menu. You can either click the icons to go through the different categories, or you can just scroll up and down. It's the same kind of menu. On the top, we have the quick access tools, which are constantly updated depending on which ones you use. In the toolbox, we have our image and video editing nodes. At Weavy, we believe that it's the image and video and 3D tools that are the glue between the AI models to make them more powerful. So we believe a lot in these, and we're working very hard to improve our image and video editing tools as well. We have some math tools, like alphas and mask tools. We have the text tools. We have two different iterators, a text iterator and an image iterators, a couple of helpers. One that is very popular is the sticky note. And then we have some data types. And then we get to the image models. In the image models, we try to categorize them a little bit. So we begin with the one where you can generate from text. So if I drag one in, you can see that you can generate from just text. You don't need an image input, for example. But if we go down, well, we also have the ones that can do vector graphics, like Vectorizer, which is nice. You can get SVGs from images. And then we get to the image editors, like the new Nano Banana Pro, Seedream, etc., etc. The image editors usually want an image input, so it's a little bit of a different category. And then we have the enhancers, so all the upscalers like Topaz, Magnific, Enhancer, which is my favorite. I think it's really good at upscaling faces. And then we get to the videos, which is pretty much the same thing. We categorize it between those that can generate from text or image versus the ones that can generate from video. You could also call them video editors. These are the new ones like Van Animate, Replace and Move, or the famous ones Alephs and Act 2, or my favorite called Luma Modify. We have a couple of lip syncers, video enhancers, and 3D models. And all you need to do, you probably saw it before, is that you can just drag out, and that is going to create a node here. But let's go back to our menu. So you also see that here we have something called assets. In assets, everything that is being generated in this workflow or imported will show up so that you don't have to re-import it or find it. And then we have this little question mark, and it's super powerful. If you press help, you can see that we have different kind of guides. We have an FAQs. We talk about different nodes and models, documentations. But what is really helpful is messages. Here you can send us questions if you have problems with bugs, or if you need help with a workflow or anything like that. And it's actually not just an AI model that is answering this. You're actually writing messages to our team. And we try to take a lot of pride to answer within 1 to 2 hours. However, sometimes we are sleeping, so then we might not. But other than that, we're pretty good at answering. So that's a very powerful thing to keep in mind. And then there's the link to Discord, but you're all here already. At the bottom, you can choose between drag or mark. You can undo and redo, and you can zoom. However, I highly suggest that you use your mouse wheel or your touchpad to scroll in and out to the platform. So that's pretty much it for all the menus. Let's create our first nodes. So you saw that the way that you can create nodes, there's 2 different ways. So you could just drag in a model from here, and it's going to populate the workflow. Or what you can do is that you can press tab, and this little list shows up. Here you can find everything that you can show in the menu on the left side. It's just a little bit of a different structure. My favorite thing to do is to right-click the canvas, and this shows up. And here you can search for maybe Nano Banana Pro, and it will show up. You can see that the nodes have inputs on the left side, and they have outputs on the right side. The outputs are usually very similar. So it's usually an image, a video, a 3D, or text. There's also audio as well. But the inputs can vary quite a bit between the different models. And the reason for that is because there's no set standard within the industry of how to build their models. And at Weavy, we try to make the platform feel very comfortable for every every level of user, but we also really don't want to take away any of the power of the models from our users. So they will all have different kind of inputs. You can see that Rev here has a reference image, and Nano Banana Pro has an image, and you can add multiple ones, for example. These are the inputs. You can see that there's a star above prompt, but there's no star above reference image. This means that Rev needs to have a text input to even be able to run the model. If we try to run Rev, it's gonna yell at me for this required input. But you don't need to have a reference image. What else do we have here? So if I press Nano Banana or Rev, you can see a menu pops up on the right side. This is all the settings. All the settings for all models are different. Usually if you just want to get going in Weavy, they're good to go to play around with, but eventually you will want to start playing around with different resolutions, different aspect ratios, and things like that. You can also see here how much it's going to cost you to run this model once. So Gemini 3, the new Nano Banana, costs you 18 credits. On the top, you see your total amount of credits. And at the bottom, you see a total calculation. So for example, if I want to make multiple runs, I can increase this. You can see that the total calculation increases. So you can see that running Nano Banana Pro 7 times cost me 126 credits. This is also handy if I mark multiple models. You can see that they both show up here on the right side, and the total calculation for running them is 22 credits. And then I can run them from here. I'm sure it's making you poor, Raoni. But hopefully you're also making money using it. Okay, so let's create our first image nodes. I'm going to delete this, so you can of course just mark multiple models or one, and then you press your delete button. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to right click, I'm going to search for fast, I'm going to do Imagen 3 fast. That is a very fast model. And if I run it, it's going to yell at me. So I also have to create a prompt. So I'm adding a prompt here where I'm writing something very easy. So I'm writing cat. I'm dragging out from the output on the left side. You can see that it creates this little node here, and it's gonna stick to all the outputs. I'm gonna leave it at the prompt one, and then I'm gonna do run model here in the middle, or you can do run selected on the right side. So I'm actually gonna run it multiple times. So I'm gonna do 5 runs, and I'm gonna do run selected. It's gonna cost me 15 credits. Then you see that it starts thinking, 0 out of 5 is created, and it's loading my cats. So very soon I will have a couple of different cats here. So if I press this image model and I hover on it, you can see that multiple things show up. You can see that on the top left, we got a little pagination menu where you can switch between my 5 different cats. You can also press single here and go into grid mode, where you can take a look at the different cats. And you can swap back by pressing the little grid again. On the right side, you can either download it or you can do enlarge. Here you're gonna see a bigger picture. You can still change between the photos on the right side. You can copy the link to the URL of this image. You can download it. And what is neat is that if you press this little I button, you can see that the settings that was used to generate this image has been saved. So here you can see the model, the prompt that I use, and all the settings. This is good in case you have changed some settings for later images and you want to go back and maybe copy the prompt and use for another image. So there's that. Down on the left side, you can see the resolution, which is nice. And then on the top, we have these 3-button menu. Here you can do things like duplicate it, rename it. So maybe we want to call this cat1 and rename it, which can be good for different kind of organizational purposes. You can, of course, delete it. You can download the current or all and do the same thing with remove. So to showcase this, we'll remove. So if I do remove current, the cat that I'm looking at is going to disappear. Actually, it might even be easier if I do this in grid mode. So if we do this one, we mark that, and we do remove current. Oh, that was download. And remove current, you see that we now only have 4 cats left. If I do remove all other, and all the ones are going to disappear, but the one that I had marked. And if we do remove all generations, they're all going to disappear. So now I have no cats. Very cool. Let's run this model and let's create a cat again. So that's how you create your first image. Let's create our first video. So I'm going to press the menu on the left side and I am going to click output, video. Here we got a bunch of video models. So I'm just going to do something like LTX2 video. I drag it in. To close this menu, you just press the symbol again. And you can see that this one also has a text in it. So I'm just gonna do cat again. And here we have a bunch of different settings. I'm gonna keep it at fast. I'm only gonna do 25 frames and I'm gonna do a short video and then I'm just gonna run it. Videos overall takes a little bit longer than images. So you can see how it's advancing here. It's gonna say 0%. Up on tasks on the right side, you can also see which models are running. Ooh, we got an error. Let's just run it again. Clear them and let's run it. So now you can see that my video is at 10%. So that's one way of generating a video. Here we go. Here we have a cat and here we have a second cat. Very nice little cat. The second way to create a video, which many people use, is that they use an image to guide the video models. So what you do then is that if you drag out from the output of my image here, and if you release the node out into the canvas, this menu of suggestions shows up. This is great because all these suggestions are going to be guaranteed to work with the node that you dragged out of. So here, if you scroll down to the videos, you know, maybe we'll do Luma Ray 2, and it's automatically gonna connect for you. This also needs a text input, so I'm gonna add my cat. However, that is really ugly. You see that this node here goes in the back of my nodes. So one of my favorite nodes in Weavy is one called the router node. The router node is only for organizational purposes. So you can feed anything into it, an image, text, or 3D, or whatever you want. And the same text, image, or 3D is gonna come out on the other side. So if I add it here, I now avoided the node spaghetti behind my cat here. The other thing that is really good about these router node is that if you have multiple videos, for example, maybe I have 2 or 3, and I have them all attached to this cat prompt. So let's attach them all. And if I run this, it's gonna give me 3 different videos. Maybe I want to add a new one that says dog. But I don't want to delete this prompt here. What is annoying now is that I have to attach my dog 3 times to these video models. 3 times is not so bad, but sometimes you have hundreds of nodes. What would have been nice is that if I instead had attached it from my router, I can just switch to dog by attaching it to router or to the cat with just one change instead of adding it multiple times. So that is a very neat feature of the router. I'm gonna delete these extra nodes and then I'm gonna add my cat back, delete the dog, and take a look at Luma Ray 2 and these settings looks good. I'm gonna run it, and it's gonna warn me because it's an expensive model. You can do don't show, and we're gonna run it. So those are the two different ways to create video nodes. I agree, the router is like my favorite node in all of Weavy. So now we showed you how to create our first images and videos. What else do we need to take a look at in Weavy? One of the most important parts of Weavy is working with text. So we already showed you the regular prompt. So actually, let's open up our menu on the left side. We're gonna go down to text tools. So we have the regular prompt tool where you can write things like, a cat is walking down the street. And then one of the most powerful nodes in all of Weavy is one called the Run Any LLM. Run Any LLM is the node that holds all the text models. So on the right side, you can choose between Claude or Gemini or GPT or Llama. Let's just do GPT-5. And this Any LLM works like any text LLM that you probably know from other platforms like ChatGPT. They can do the same kind of work right in Weavy, and it's going to cost you 1 credit to run it once. So here you can give it different instructions. So if I add this to the prompt, you can give it different instructions. So instead of saying a cat is walking down the street, let's say, tell me a short story about a cat. And then if I run this, it's gonna pretty quickly generate a story about a cat. Here we got a pretty long story about a cat. Cat's name is Luna, and it's a gray small cat. Perfect. The NLLM node also has something called a system prompt. A system prompt, you can just use a regular prompt input and add it. What I often do just for organizational purposes is that I rename my system prompt to system prompt, just to keep it a little bit organized, but you don't have to do that. In the system prompt, we usually give the LLM a personality and instructions of how to use structure. So I often say things like you're a world-class art director and you're a color theory expert or something like that. What I often do is that I also tell it to structure my prompt in different ways. For example, some models like Sora 2 likes prompts that are structured within menus. So what I would do is that I write a story and then I tell it in the system prompt to restructure my prompt in a Sora 2 style, for example. But I'll show something very simple here. So I'll say something like, write the text in all caps, which is stupid because you'll never do that. But if I run this again, it's now gonna give me a new story about a cat, but hopefully it should give it to me in all caps. So here we have an all caps result saying a story about a small black cat named Shadow. So that's how you work with system prompts, and it's very, very powerful. These texts can then, of course, be used for an image model. So maybe you take this and you run it, and it's gonna give us a black cat called named Shadow, and it's gonna take all these instructions in the image models. Here we go, Shadow, cute. What else is important when working with text? Let's open up the menu again, go down to our text tools. There is one tool called the prompt concatenator that is very important. The prompt concatenator can add multiple texts together. So maybe you'll write something like cat, and then you do semicolon and space, and you add it, and that is gonna be added here. Then in a second prompt that might be coming from a different path of a workflow, it's gonna say Scottish fold, which is a specific breed. And you'll add it, and it's gonna say cat Scottish fold. You can add multiple ones, and you can of course add something here at the end. So maybe we'll say something like, if I do return, and then I say something like pattern stripes. then that is going to show up as well. So you can see that it's used my different returns, and then it wrote this as well. This is great for like building long prompts that comes from different paths of the workflows. So it's a very, very powerful tool for working within Weavy. Something else that is important about the NeLLM node is that it also can analyze images. So if I add a new NeLLM node, I search for run NeLLM, and you see that it has an image input here. It can do multiple inputs. So if you have multiple image, it can analyze the overall style. But what I mostly use it for is to describe an image. So I'm just gonna add this image of shadow here, and then it's gonna recognize this image. I'm then gonna say, describe the image in 500 characters or less. And then I'll add it and run it, and we should get a description of the image. So here it says, a black cat with yellow eyes sits on a roof under a starry night. Perfect. We actually have a tool that can do exactly this, but you can of course make a very more precise prompt and develop it further to work with this. But what you can just do if you just want a description, I'm going to delete this. You can just do the image describer, or for video we have the video describer. That does a really good job of just describing an image for you. On the right side, you have the instructions and the model, so you can change it to GPT-5. And if you scroll the way to the down, we have set it to 500 characters, but you can do 50,000 characters, and you're gonna get a much longer prompt here, for example. So that's how you can describe images. Something else that is pretty powerful is something called a prompt enhancer. So here we have a pretty weak prompt that is just saying cat, Scottish fold, pattern stripes. If you don't want to develop that further yourself, you can use the prompt enhancer. If you attach the prompt enhancer and run it, it should give you a way more descriptive prompt. So here it says, a fluffy Scottish fold cat with striped pattern sits comfortably on a plush cushion. So this can be really helpful for just working with text prompts. So here we got a much longer description of shadow. So that's how to work with text in Weavy. We have added 2 new functions in the last month, something called a text iterator and an image iterator. So let's take a look at how that works, because it's very powerful. So let's work with the text iterator. So if you add it to something like the NeLLM node, or you can add multiple items. So if you press here, you can add a list. So maybe you do dog, and you do cat, and you do giraffe, and you do bear. And actually, let's not do the LLM node. Let's just do an image. So I'm going to search for fast. And then if you attach the text iterator to an image model, it's automatically going to detect that this is not a regular text prompt, but a text iterator with 4 different objects. So you can see that running Google Imagen 3 once cost me 3 credits. But at the bottom it says 12 credits. And that's because it's detecting that it's an image, a text iterator that is going to run all 4 variations in one click. So if I press run, we should get a dog, we should get a cat, a giraffe, and a bear. Perfect. Here we got our giraffe, we got our bear, a dog, and a cat. Perfect. How else can you work with the text iterator? So for example, maybe you have a prompt, maybe you have a text prompt that is saying fish, quokka, that is my favorite animal. And let's add a third one. So maybe like antelope. And if you add this to the text iterator, you can see that this little split text by shows up. This is using comma, which is what I used here. So you can see that the fish, the quokka, and antelope got split into 3 different text items instead of one long one. But you can do any symbol you want. So if you want to do and or backslash or something like that, you can do that. But I'm just going to keep it to comma for this example. So that when I run this again, we should get an antelope, a quokka, and a fish. There we go. Here we have a dog, a quokka, and a fish, a flying fish. So that is very powerful for working in Weavy. There's also a node called the array node that works very similar. So the array node, you can also add multiple text to it and split it. But instead of adding it directly to an image node that is not going to work like this, what you need to do, let's attach this one again. You need to add something called a list selector. In the list selector, you can attach an array, and here you can instead choose one of them. So if you choose quokka and search for fast, you can just add that, and now we're only gonna get the quokka. So these are just different approaches depending on what you want to achieve. They're similar. What the iterator does is that it runs the full list in a batch, and the array doesn't do that. So here I only have a quokka, for example. The quokka is awesome ROM. You should Google it. They're always happy, and they live only on an island outside Australia, and they have no enemies, so they're very, very friendly. Yes, so that's how you work with the text iterator. And let's also do the image iterator, which is very, very powerful. So we have the image iterator, and here you can upload or drag in or paste a link to upload hundreds of images. I'm just gonna go to my downloads, and I'll have like a bunch of, let's see, I think I have some food images here. Here we have different food variations, so I'm gonna upload 4 different images. And you can see that I can go between them, but if I attach this to this model, oh, we can't do this one because it doesn't have image inputs. So let's use our menu, and we do input, image, output, image. Then we get all the image to image models. So let's do something like nano banana, for example. So I'm gonna add this here. And it also needs a text prompt, so I'm gonna say something like food and add it. And if you press nano banana here, you again see that it's gonna cost me 16 credits. That's because it's recognizing all 4 different images. And when I run it, it's gonna make generations from each of those 4 images. And not just one of them. This is very powerful for working with large batches of like hundreds of different images. So you can see that it's trying to keep the aspect ratio of each image, the background of each image, but add some creativity to it. So here we got our 4 images. So we got an apple that probably comes from this apple. It's exactly the same, boring. And then we got this that probably comes from this banana. And then we got a pizza that probably comes from this aspect ratio. And then at last we also have a nice banana boat. So that's how to work with image iterators. Let's take a look at the time. We have around 5 minutes left. I want to show you one last tool before I leave a little bit of room for questions. So one of the most important nodes in all of Weavy is one called the compositor. In the compositor, you can add multiple images. So if I press the compositor and I drag from Google Imagen, you can just add it. And you can add multiple layers. So if you want to have a bunch of layers, you can have that. I'm gonna add my quokka. I'm gonna add my fish to the second layer. And I'm gonna add this text above it. So here you can see that I have a fish that says quokka. If I press this edit button, you're gonna get taken into the compositor mode. Here you can change the dimensions, and you can move things around. So if I move my text it's gonna be layered below the fish. You can do different kind of transformations. So if I move my little fishy around, I can rotate it. Maybe I want to flip it. You can do different kind of alignments. Maybe you want to flip them, something like that, and do some cool blend mode. So here we have a fish, and our text here says quokka. So let's change that. So let's change the font to something more fun, and we'll do very different kind of styles. Maybe we'll do like 200 sized, something like that. Let's change the color to white and let's align it in the center. So you can do any kind of like classical text and image edits as well. So then you can see that we have an image here that you can then use for something else. So maybe we'll search for Nano Banana again. We'll tell it to add that, and in a text, I'm gonna add it to say a dog. And let's see how it's react to this very weird prompt. So this is a very powerful way of juxtaposing different images, text, and then also you can of course just download it from there, but also keep building on that system. What is good to keep in mind is that the compositor also takes video input. So you can add multiple videos and you can do different kind of mask treatments to the videos and juxtapose multiple videos on top of each other and yeah, use that for outputs or downloads or something like that. Okay, so Nano Banana didn't really take too much input from the look of this, which is a very confusing prompt. So I understand that. So that is pretty much most of the powerful tools. We have, of course, different kind of mask tools that can be very powerful. But because we are running short of time, I want to make sure that I leave a little bit of time for questions. So here, if you have any questions, please request to speak and I'll let you up on stage. If not, I'm going to go through the chat and see if there are any questions going on. It looks like Raoni has been super helpful and answered a bunch of them. Here we got Ali. Welcome up on stage. Hello, Ali.
All right. Sorry, I was muted.
Yeah, no worries.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
I was just wondering for the last part with the compositor, if there is the option to put in an input weight or something like that. I've seen it in other workflows. Would that be possible in this example also, so that the result of the golden retriever might actually be more like the input from the compositor?
There's different kind of models, so that is up to the model. So if you like the settings that happens for the different kind of models here on the right side, it's not actually something that we choose. It's up to the model vendors to choose how they do. Some of them do have.
So I just have to choose another model, like not Gemini 2.5 Nano Banana, just a model that supports input weight.
Exactly. I don't remember on the top of my head, but there's a few models that has different kind of weight options and things like that. So yeah, you can absolutely do that if the model allows it, for sure.
All right, thanks.
Of course, of course. Cool. Let's see what else we got going here. Can you share the masking tool? I tried it out and there's a fringe around it. I tried multiple masking nodes, but no way to remove fringe. I'm not quite sure what fringe means in this context. If you want to elaborate a little bit on that, that would be awesome. For cleanup, okay, so Green Tea is answering the question. And I see that T is writing, so let's just give them a second. Fringe is cleanup of edges refined. Okay, so I think I understand what you mean. So let's take a look at some of our mask tools. So we got our dog here, for example. So let's go to the mask tools and do maybe mask by text. So if I add my result here, and then in a prompt, I'm gonna say mask the dog and add it here and run it. Should get a nice mask of this dog. Exactly. So here we have the mask of this dog. So what you're asking is how we can like clean it up a little bit. So one thing you can do is that you can do the matte grow and matte shrink. So if you add this here and you can do different kind of sizes, you can play around with the mask for a little bit. But what I usually do mostly is that I use the painter node. So if you search for painter, we have a painter tool. And if you add a mask here, you can work manually on your mask. You can paint with any color you wish. So if you want to do red, you can do that. But obviously for masks, I usually work with white or black. So I'll do this, and then maybe I'll increase my size a little bit. And then I start working on this mask. So maybe I want to get rid of the tail or something like that and work on it like this. And then I would use this to generate something else. So that's how you can refine your masks a bit. Let's see if we have any other questions. Seems to have been quite a lot of questions in the chat this time. So let's just go from the start and let's see if there's any that Raoni hasn't answered. So Chris says, if I share a workflow with somebody, can they share it again or copy it? Yes. If you duplicate it, well, actually they can share it again. They can just share the link with anyone, and then anybody with that link can see it if that's the setting you set. So if the original owner has set it to anybody with the link can view, then anybody can share it. Otherwise, if you just invite a specific person, then they can't share it further unless they do duplicate and share their own workflow further. So that's how the sharing works. Let's see. How do you checkpoint version your workflow? You can duplicate, but can you stack versions on top of each other in the browser for a clean organization? Great question, Green Tea. This is something that we're working on. We're working on versioning and also different kind of checkpoints within sequences. So this will all be added in the coming months, but it's not something that is finished at this point. Let's see. Bunch of conversations. Does the image iterator only work with imports? Can it work with Nano Banana node, for example? That is a great question. At this point, it does only work with imports, but we are working on adding inputs to it so that you can batch run it as a batch tool from other AI images. What you can do at this point is that you can just, if you press download and download all, you can of course just re-upload all the generated images in an image iterator and run it. But we understand that it's not an optimal UX. It should obviously have text inputs or image inputs as well. So we are working on that. Ran into this yesterday. In the compositor, how do I delete an input slot? You don't. we don't have that alternative yet. However, if you don't use the input slot, it shouldn't create an extra layer for you. So you should be fine. Not remove the link from an image into the compositor, but let's say I have 4 layers and I optimize it so I don't need 3 to 4 layers anymore. The compositor node, when you remove an incoming image, seems to retain transforms of the input, which I may not want if I'm introducing a new composition. That it should not do. So that sounds like a bug. I'm going to take a look at this after this session, and if I can repeat it, I'm going to report it to our engineering channel. We should obviously just have a remove layer input, but the idea right now is that the extra layer shouldn't do anything with the image. It should just be empty. However, it should not save the information from the prior image. Let's see. Tons of conversation going on. This is great. What is the best way to create LoRa so that images retain maximum detail and similar style? So LoRa's is obviously a huge part of Weavy. Like I use LoRa's all the time in Weavy. However, you don't train them on the Weavy platform. You can train them on any platform you want and import your LoRa into the Weavy platform. Personally, I usually train them on replicate.com or FAL.ai. It's my favorite service and a good partner of ours. And then you download the tensor file, the safe tensor file, and you search for the import LoRa. And you can import multiple LoRas here, and you can, add them, and you save the trigger word and different weights, and then you change the weight here and you apply it to any models that has a LoRa. So if you search for LoRa, you can see that there's a bunch of flux models that takes LoRas, and then you just apply the LoRa and the LoRa weight, and then you run it. So that's how you work with LoRas. I do it all the time. You just don't train them in the Weavy platform. If I used a video compositor with audio included, then regenerated that video, would it remain intact? E.g., I wanted to refine a lip sync or any masking issues. Would it completely change the comp? Would the faces remain consistent? It depends on the model that you use. So I'll show you an example. Let's see. Where is it? I thought I had it here. There it is, video compositor, but that's the old, okay. Let's see. Here it is. So here you can see that I created like a workflow with 3 different characters coming from 3 different paths. I masked the videos using the painter and the clean video and the merge alpha node. So here you can see that it's masking out the rest of the image to create transparent video background. And then I put them all together in the compositor node so that all my 3 characters lives within the same scene. But when I did this, it created, if I zoom in, you can see that it created like a tiny bit of an ugly edge here of between the tanning woman and the background. So what I did is that I extracted the video frame. So I just took a frame and then I added it to a painter node and I painted over the parts that I want to fix because I'm happy with the rest of the image. I also used an image describer because ideogram version 3 needs a text input. And then I took my original image and the mask and added it. And then ideogram version 3 in Paint will do a good job of getting rid of like the ugly edges of this woman. So then I have a single frame that looks good and I have a video that doesn't have good edges. So then I used 3 different models. I used Luma Modify, I used Animate Move, and Animate Replace. And then I added my original video here from the router together with my new style frame. And those video models actually does a really good job of redoing the same video, but it's gonna fix my, my ugly edges. So, just play around with different kind of models and see which ones does the best job. None of them are perfect at this point. I personally like Luma Modify, but we're getting there in terms of reacting videos and editing videos as well, which is very, very promising. This is also like a pretty advanced thing to fix. So if there's lighter things to fix, I think that this pipeline of working with a video compositor and not using the video compositor as the last step before an export, but actually to take multiple layers of multiple videos and use it as inputs for guiding different kind of video models is really where like the focus should be of where we should go with working with video as well. Is there a way to download all assets from one workflow? I also wished so. There's not yet. We are definitely adding that as soon as we can. At this point, you can only download all images or videos from one specific node, which is very annoying. Yes, I can send this workflow here. So I'm going to share. And I'm going to share it in the chat. So there you go. Cool. So I think we are running out of time. So I don't think I can answer any more questions. Let me I have another meeting starting in 3 minutes. So I have to end this stream here. But this has been awesome. And as always, I'm gonna do a little bit of housekeeping. So we do 2 sessions every week. One on Mondays, 4 p.m. Central European time. First Steps in Weavy is what we've been doing today. One-on-one session looking at how to create your first notes. On Thursdays at 4 p.m. Central European time, we do office hours, a little bit of a more advanced session where we help users troubleshoot their workflows, push the platform, and learn together. We record these sessions so you can also watch them retroactively. They're going to be posted in the sub-channel called Weavy Live. This has been awesome, everybody. Thank you for joining, and thank you, chat. Bye, chat. And bye, everybody.